So I do dream of labor, and I think you should dream of labor too. So this video was inspired by the whole I don't dream of labor trend that we saw in like 2023. And this video is basically to challenge that notion and to encourage people to get to a place where they sort of know and accept that labor is natural and essential, and where we decide not to settle for anything short of the labor that we dream of. I think we should all have a dream for our labor. So in this video, I want to cover number one, why labor should not be something that we dream of escaping. So firstly, I don't think we ought to think about escaping labor. I think instead labor should be accepted and embraced as something that is a good majority of our lives. Just on a practical level, I think this is statistic, labor takes up 80,000 hours of our lives. It takes up a lot of time. And I think it might be useful to just broaden out the definition of labor. It's not just something that enables you to live your real life. It is your life. Work is more than a job. It's not somewhere you just clock in. I think it's how humans exercise their faculties, being mental or physical faculties or anything, to shape their natural environment and to leave a lasting mark on the world. I think the notion of working to live in 2 days of the week or to really live on holidays is suboptimal. And I appreciate that, it is the reality of most of us, of course. But I think it's fair to acknowledge that that's not the best case scenario. And I think that's something that obviously came to the forefront. During the pandemic, we started to think more critically about our work. But I think out of that time came the notion of, okay, I don't dream of labor. And I don't think that was the appropriate response to that time. Practically, if you spend 80,000 hours of your lives doing something, you should absolutely have dreams about it. But on the flip side, we will dream about the 7-day holiday that we want to take. But it's no, I think it probably pays more dividends. It's probably a better return on your time to dream about something that you're going to spend the bulk of your life in. And I think going back to that definition about, exercising your faculties towards an end, I think there's something so beautiful about putting your energy towards a desired goal, putting your mind, your body, your labor, literally your physical hands towards something and getting that accomplishment that gives you so much fulfillment. And the science backs it up too. So there's one study that found that when people moved from unemployment into paid work, for just 8 hours or less a week, their risk of mental health problems reduced by an average of 30%. And what that study suggested was it was due to feelings of fulfillment and social inclusion and all these sort of things. So yeah, I think it's clear the benefits of work. I think it is almost innate to us. It is so close to our nature, the desire to be able to want to create something, to do work, basically. And I think in my experience, this topic is actually very interesting because I've been hearing more about people switching to more manual and physical jobs. So, obviously in the 21st century, in 2024, most work, at least in the Western world, is, white collar, it's with your mind and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm seeing more and more people from in my age demographic thinking about, okay, how can I work with my hands? How can I make the outcome of my work actually look more physical? And I think the reason for that is the benefits of labor, being feelings of fulfillment and seeing the results of your work are more visceral, are more visible when you're actually working with your hands. And I just want to stick and work with sort of this physical work analogy. I know that not everyone needs to work in manual labor, and it's probably not even possible in this day and age, but I think it's going to help us to see a point and help us to reframe. But think about how cool it is that maybe okay, on Monday, somebody asked me to make a chair for them. By Friday, there is a chair that I could give to another human because I worked on it with my hands. I think that level of fulfillment and accomplishment is crazy. And neuroscientist Kelly Lambert in her recent book talks about this, where she says that physical work is more beneficial to the human psyche and stuff because we feel more in control of our natural environment. And that sort of sense of control leads to reduced stress and thoughts of hopelessness, which can obviously be linked to other bigger mental health issues. Thinking about manual labor, and obviously, we're in a time where we've moved so far away from that, but perhaps thinking more about that can help us to think about the benefits of work and reframe our approach to work today. I also want to talk about the virtues that can be shown in work, any type of work, such as hard work, patience, creativity, whatever. Maybe this is a hot take or a lukewarm take, I don't know, but I wonder if there's more to our sort of adoration and, the way we look at sort of rich people and successful people that is maybe more than the fact that they can just live comfortable or exclusive lives. Maybe to some level we look up to them, we almost envy them because they have demonstrated more intensity of the virtues that we like, such as hard work, innovation, problem solving, whatever. I don't know, but what I do know is that when we congratulate our friends on their promotion, it's not necessarily just the outcome of the promotion. Okay, yes, you got better pay, you got better benefits, but I think we congratulate them because we are cognizant and appreciative of the hard work and the other virtues that it took to get that promotion. So, we see the virtues that were inputted as a good thing and something worth celebrating. And lastly, I don't think we should dream about escaping labor because of the impact that labor has on the community or our society. I think, if we have $1 for every time we hear that that humans are social creatures, especially since the pandemic. Like, we would have enough money to actually not dream of labor. But yes, I think the majority of us are conscious of the collective we are. And, we think about we and us, like even in the most individualistic and, Western societies. And I think it's important to recognize that our labor does contribute to the running of our societies and communities sometimes, most times. And I think for most of us, knowing that our labor contributes to our communities and our societies is valuable to us. And I think also knowing that other people know the value that we're adding is also valuable to us. Like, again, I think if we think about this in like the olden days, it might help. Back in the days of like bartering, like I think this feeling of impacting your community would have been even more like visceral. Like, I made this dress and then I exchanged it with my neighbor for something else, and now their child has a dress for the winter. There you have that impact right there, and that's super fulfilling. But I think even today's sense, like say you're a doctor or some sort of medical person in your area, like I'm sure you have like friends and family who reach out to you when they need advice or have an emergency. Like, you gain utility, you gain fulfillment from knowing that you're helping your community. Let's say you're a primary school teacher or just any sort of teacher, or you're a fireman. Like, the impact to your community is crystal clear to you. And ladies and gentlemen, that impact is worth dreaming of. It's worth thinking of, okay, how do I want to impact my society? Like, how do I want to be seen in the community? And I think perhaps the problem is due to the fact that a lot of us work in jobs that maybe it takes some steps or it takes some mental gymnastics to show exactly how it's useful to our society. Maybe it's because a lot of us work in global organizations where maybe the impact is actually not in our local community, or maybe it's not even in our country. And this expert in this topic, David Graeber, in his book, basically flags how a large number of people are in sort of unnecessary or meaningless jobs, and how these jobs basically contribute to the feelings of alienation, resentment, depression even, and basically how those feelings thus increase the need for escapism. So yeah, I think there are probably a few sources of where this disillusionment with work as a whole comes from, but this leads me to my second point, which is the problem is not with labor. The problem is probably just with your current labor. So the reality is that most people just don't dream about their current labor, or they don't dream about the current subset of labor that they've been exposed to. Like, maybe the typical 40-hour week just isn't great for you. And actually, as that first study that I mentioned about the 8 hours, it actually showed that after 8 hours, there were diminishing impacts of work on mental health. So, maybe going above that isn't great for you, but I don't think anyone can say that they don't dream of labor as a whole, because, well, frankly, the odds are you don't know the full extent of all the work opportunities that are out there. And even if you do know the full extent of work, you probably don't see them as legitimate or feasible or attainable for you personally. So an easy example of this is social media, which by now in 2024, I think most people do know that it is an example of labor and it is a job, but definitely most people do not see it as attainable or feasible for them. So here's why I want to focus the most of this video on. You should spend time actively dreaming about labor. You should dream about the labor that would perfectly suit you. You should actively work on broadening the scope and building the image of what the kind of job would look like that would be perfect for you. The thing is, this might not be a singular job. This might be a collection of different forms of labor that are dream-worthy for you as a person. Like, I'm sure there's someone watching this who will want to work 20 hours as a nurse and then maybe the rest of the time spend it painting and working on this art project or whatever. Or maybe someone wants to spend 40 hours as an accountant, but then 20 hours as a PR expert and go to all these events. Like I said before, labor takes up a huge chunk of life, and it's definitely worth putting thought into what an ideal would look like for you. It is worth dreaming of your labor. So in what ways can we dream of our labor? It's so personal, but maybe you dream about a labor that allows you to exercise a certain skill and work towards mastery in that skill. Maybe you dream about being able to dabble frequently between all of your different skill sets because you're quite multifaceted. Maybe you dream about doing work that helps certain people on a certain issue that is close to your heart. Maybe you dream about working outside and connecting with nature. Maybe something that connects with your values. There's so many different things, and I just, the aim of this video is just to broaden, the view and to encourage people to just think a lot bigger and just really dream big about labor. Whatever it is, I want you to know that you have the permission and honestly almost obligation to yourself to dream about your labor. Okay, so at this point, social media is inseparable from capitalism. It isn't a coincidence that the whole not dream of labor movement was around the summertime of 2023. I think having this ideology is perfect for fueling the consumerism and indulgence that is marked by the holiday season. I think it's worth saying that I think it's ironic that they want you to engage in spending money while also telling you to, abstain from the activity that allows you to spend money, but whatever. I think it's worth mentioning that if you manage to actualize the labor that you dream of, you will not need to spend on escapism. Like, escapism is actually quite expensive when you think about it. Like, there was this article that suggested that people in the UK save for about 6 to 12 months for a holiday. This is on average. Obviously the number might be skewed a little bit, but this basically is telling a story that we today, on average, we work for basically up to a year just to be able to take a 1 or 2 week holiday. That's kind of insane when you think about it. And, I hear among my circles like the classic thing of coming back from a holiday and feeling so stressed about money and feeling super broke because, maybe you overspent or whatever. And then that adds stress to like your real life and your day-to-day lives. And it takes months to recover financially. And yeah, this doesn't include other forms of escapism like designer clothes or whatever else that were sold by the internet. But just in general, escapism and feeling like you need to escape from whatever you're doing for the majority of your life is expensive. And I think it's worth thinking about, okay, how can I cut the costs on that? And no, I'm not knocking enjoyment or traveling. And I know that you can engage in any form of enjoyable activity without it crossing into the escapism category. But I just wanted to highlight just how expensive escapism is, just in case you feel like you might be in that category, because I think when we appreciate the cost, it might motivate us to think about how we can reduce that or find a better way, which is basically what this video is aiming to do. But yeah, I am a big believer that if you do you find a labor that you dream of that you don't feel like you need to escape from, that yeah, you probably will just need to spend less on those things. I think that's quite obvious. And I've met a lot of people who actually generally don't feel they need to escape from the labor. Like, their labor integrates quite well with their lives, and they're just sort of naturally living their lives, and they don't feel like I need to take a holiday, because it almost all integrates and they feel happy, they feel fulfilled, and they feel like they're using the time in their lives in a way that they want to. And as we end, I think it's just worth broadening out the definition of work and labor a little bit. I think in this case, the physics definition of work might be useful, where it's basically just an exertion or transfer of energy or whatever. And I think if we layer on economics onto that, we can see it as the exertion of energy that results in money or just income in some way, shape, or form. And, I think there are a lot of rich people who don't actually have employment in the way that we think of it, but definitely still work. The recent job that I've actually been recently exposed to and actually really inspired by people who do this is basically people who help people with their networks. Let's say there's a company that wants to get a contract in a new location or whatever. This person just is the person that can open a door for that company. So maybe they have networks in that country. So, this person, they maybe just spend like 30 minutes buttering up their target. They go for a coffee with the target person they're trying to get the contract from. And then there's a 5 minutes writing an email to connect both parties. The person then gets a percentage of that contract. That is work. It's not employment in the way they think about it. It's quite unique, but that person is probably working like 24/7. Like, everywhere they're going, they're thinking about, okay, who am I meeting today? Who could be beneficial for me to connect to someone else? So yeah, this is not to knock their work. They probably work pretty long hours actually. But yeah, to show that there are probably unique forms of labor that are not in the forefront. It's not the nurse that we think about. It's not the teacher. It's not the accountant that we normally think about. So yeah, this is just an example of how we can broaden and redefine work a little bit. And I think the people who work in sort of these unique, creative, and flexible jobs, I think these are the people who really spend time dreaming about what is going to work for them, what is the labor that they want. So I think in the same way, we don't have to do the connecting thing and the networking thing, but in the same way, how can we think more creatively about the work personally suits you, your experience, your values, your upbringing, everything like that. So in conclusion, I don't think this video gives you that many solutions per se, but the aim of it was that I think it should convince you that labor should not be seen as something that you simply, quote unquote, don't live for or don't dream of. Like, no, I think you very much should be dreaming and putting mental energy into the labor that you all dedicate so much time doing. Honestly, have a dream for your labor and let that dream be big. Okay. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to dream less about the weekend and more about their labor. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.